Okay, hello and welcome to today's event, everyone. I'm Jason Dumpert from MSDynamicsWorld.com, and I'm joined by Matt Adamovich, COO of T3 Information Systems, and he is a returning speaker for us here to present on overcoming the difficulties of budgeting in Excel. So as we get started, please know that you can add your feedback and ask questions today using the Q&A block that you should see to the right of the main presentation window. I know Matt will be leaving time at a couple different points in the session to take your questions, so please do enter those at any point. And without further delay, please allow me to welcome Matt to get things started.
All right, great. Thank you, Jason. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your location. Welcome to our webinar today of Full Circle Budget. Full Circle Budget will energize your Excel-based budgets. My name is Matthew Adamovich. I'm a principal with T3 Information Systems. We are the developer of Full Circle Budget. Since you are joining us today, I don't have to tell you how Excel is a very powerful tool in your daily life, especially budgeting. Depending on the survey, upwards of 85% of organizations will use Excel in some capacity during their budget process. Why do they use Excel? Well, the answers are obvious for most people. Excel is extremely flexible with limitless formatting, provides robust formula and calculation options, all of those leading to quick modeling. Besides that, it's very easy to use. However, with all the good Excel brings to the table for budgeting, it has its challenges. It's a file-based system, so you have lack of central database, lack of control and data integrity, lack of an audit trail, and no data validation. In addition to those challenges, the following are frequent pain points when budgeting with Microsoft Dynamics as we explore with prospects. They're manually formatting budget entry templates in Excel. They're linking budget workbooks together to create the budget system. They're copying and pasting data to import into Dynamics. And lastly, they're spending hours reconciling that budget data from the Excel workbooks in their Dynamics accounting system. What if there was a solution that leveraged the best of Excel but minimized these challenges? Full Circle Budget is that answer. Full Circle Budget is an Excel add-in that assists with the budget tasks associated with Excel budgeting and updating your Microsoft Dynamics accounting package. Two primary functions of Full Circle Budget are formatting the Excel workbooks for budget entry and saving the budget data directly back to Dynamics. Those are the two primary features. Our direct integrations with Microsoft accounting software include GP, SL, and NAV. For those GP users, our Work Smarter, Not Harder graphic highlights the limitations of the Budget Wizard for Excel when comparing to Full Circle Budget. Check it out in our resource library on our website. Our first customer profile is a company, Costa Del Mar. Costa was looking for a budget solution that worked in Excel with their current budget workbooks. They did not want to have to reinvent the wheel and purchase a full-blown budgeting system. The problem was they had 26 departments and budgeted across multiple workbooks and multiple worksheets, and the time delays to get the budget data from those accounts back into Great Plains took about a week. After implementing Full Circle Budget, they now update their fiscal budgets and are doing forecasts for all 26 departments in about 15 minutes. So their budget cycle went from a week of reconciling alone to 15 minutes. Needless to say, Ms. Morrissey was thrilled with the time savings. Our second customer profile is Goodwill Industries International. Very similar to Costa, Goodwill was looking for a budgeting solution that could work with their Excel-based process that they currently had deployed. The problem was version control over 90 departments and the burden on accounting. So they had multiple staff making copies of workbooks, having various versions, etc. With Full Circle Budget, they decreased the time of their budget cycle and had substantial cost savings with the automated updating of the department budget workbooks. So no longer were there copies of worksheets needed or workbooks. Everything was saved directly back to Dynamics during the process. Ms. Nielsen was excited, to say the least. Some key features of Full Circle Budget beyond what we had talked about briefly with formatting workbooks and saving budget data. They include flexibility. Full Circle Budget sits in Excel, so it works on your formats. Any format you can design in Excel, Full Circle Budget will configure for. Saving the budget data. That can be done in real time, meaning I'm going to save directly from individual spreadsheets, workbooks by individual users directly back to Dynamics, or you can process batches of workbooks with the batch mode process. Multiple budgets. So in this case, we support multiple budgets in the same worksheet, as well as detail line item budgeting. The detail line item budgeting we'll get to later, but the multiple budgets option is very powerful and key for a lot of our users, where they're doing a projection plus a budget at the same time. To get that budget data and that projection data back into Microsoft Dynamics accounting, they would have to export and import each budget separately. With Full Circle Budget, it saves all the budget data directly back with no exporting and importing. An audit trail. So alleviate that central database issue, control over the budgets. Our audit trail feature tracks all budget updates and error messages that are received during the budget process. From a formatting perspective, Full Circle Budget will help automate the front end of your budget cycle setup. Some of the key formatting options include color coding the cells for budget entry. So again, highlighting for the end user where they're going to have to go to enter their budget. Password protecting the workbook and locking all the non-budget cells. So the end users cannot change any of the other data that's in the spreadsheet. They can only enter budget data where you've denoted. Specify the page layout for printing and freeze frames. This is a key feature if you're using a reporting tool like Microsoft Management Reporter. So if you export those reports to Excel, the page layout is not set, so we can automate the formatting of that so you can easily fit reports on the layout that you desire. We create formulas and variance calculations. Again, another powerful feature if you're exporting from Management Reporter, where you'll lose all of your column formulas, which would be variance calculations or sum calculations of many months. On screen now is a quick scenario of how you would use Full Circle Budget with Management Reporter. So on the left-hand side would be my Management Reporter report that I just generated from my Microsoft Dynamics accounting system. And when I generate that report and export it to Excel, Full Circle Budget is going to take over once we're in Excel, and it's going to format this report in Management Reporter to look like this as part of the output. Now the end user can take that outputted, fully formatted report, do their data entry, and save. And when they save the budget data, the Excel workbook, the budget data then saves with Full Circle Budget directly back to SQL into the Full Circle Budget database, as well as the Microsoft Dynamics database. So then you could rerun Management Reporter reports and re-export to Excel, enter new changes, save, and hence the term Full Circle Budget. Some additions in pricing overlay. We have two versions currently, a basic and an enterprise. The main difference between the two are just the users. So under the basic license, you would get 3 users, and those are named users in the system. Under the enterprise license, you get unlimited users. The enterprise license also includes what we call the detail line item budgeting or budget transactions feature. The NAV accounting system is only available on the enterprise level. Pricing is $2,000 or $4,000 plus 20% annual maintenance. Small sampling of some of our clients, and we're going to move on to a demo. As we switch over to the demo, I'd like to open up the lines for any questions if we have anything there, Jason.
Yeah, so a question that came in already is, does the budget data get saved both to the Dynamics company and to FCB, or just FCB?
Good question, yes. Yes, so the budget data is funneled through Full Circle Budget directly to the Dynamics company database. So your budget IDs in Dynamics GP, SL, and NAV are updated with the budget data from those spreadsheets. So there's no separate export import. It is in the system when you save and process.
Okay, and another question here, can I use BI 360 reporting with FCB?
Yes, you can, and we can highlight that a little bit later during the demo, but again, the concept is Full Circle Budget sits in Excel, just like BI 360 does, so you can use the two interchangeably. In fact, we've got many clients that we have on Full Circle Budget that use the BI 360 reporting tool just for the reporting side of things. So you generate your report templates, budget templates with BI 360. Full Circle Budget saves the budget data.
Okay, no other questions right now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jason. All right, so as we move into the demo phase of things, I want to start out with a processing aspect, focusing on those two primary features I highlighted before, formatting the budget workbooks and then saving the data. So first and foremost, I want to bring up on my screen, I've got two different budget formats that were generated from Management Reporter. So those familiar with Management Reporter know what this output looks like if you're using the web output. So I'm going to first take these reports and I'm going to save them to Excel. And by saving them to Excel, I now have the ability to open them and let Full Circle Budget open up and format those workbooks. So when I open this workbook up on the right-hand side, you can see here Full Circle Budget has recognized this budget template for me automatically and is formatting it for me for deployment to my end users. So all my individual sheets that are in this workbook have been formatted with the color coding cells, the password protection, all of that has been set automatically based on Full Circle Budget definitions. And those comments, again, comments are not retrievable or not stored in Management Reporter or Dynamics. The comments are stored in Full Circle Budget, so it retrieves those comments as well as format the workbook. So again, end user can't make any changes except in the columns that you've denoted for them to make those budget changes, as well as enter comments. Another option I'm going to do real quick here is the second format, which is a little bit more fancy, let's call it. It's a year-end forecast where I'm going to be pulling in my actual data for a period of time, and then I'm going to finish out the rest of the year with forecast or budget data. Very typical example we encounter with a lot of our clients. So I'm going to download this report, just like I did before, and save. And again, when opening that report, it doesn't necessarily automatically format if I've got a definition that says prompt the end user. So we've got a couple settings in Full Circle Budget that will either never format or retrieve, always format or retrieve, or prompt the end user to format and retrieve. So you use each of those in a different scenario depending on how you deploy it and what your end users are seeing. So in this case, I'm not going to retrieve automatically on this because I wanted to highlight the fact of these individual worksheets are what I would deploy as a landscape view because there's so many columns on here. And if I went to print preview this real quick, you'll notice that it doesn't fit all the report on one page. It's not formatted very nicely at all. So again, that's a downside of using Management Reporter and exporting to Excel. The good thing is Full Circle Budget can format that for you. A couple other things I wanted to highlight. Again, this column here, which is column O, is just a value because I exported from Management Reporter to Excel, so I've got values in here. I actually want this to be a sum formula that's going to sum up these 12 months because I want to get my actual data plus the remaining months of my forecast to calculate my total forecast. So when I go to process this workbook with Full Circle Budget, and I'm not going to do all the sheets, I'm going to pick and choose maybe the first two here, and I'm going to hit retrieve. This retrieve feature, again, like the previous workbook, formats the workbook and retrieves the comments. So based on the definition and the setup of this particular definition, it's formatted the workbook for me and retrieved the comments that were previously stored. Here's a projection forecast. Here's next year's budget. So all that data, the formatting, I can look at the print preview. It's now set to one page by one page. The freeze frame is set so I can scroll down and not lose my headers. And the password protection. So if I try to type in data in any of these columns or change the column headers, I cannot do that. I can only change data in the areas that I'm being provided based on the setup, as well as the comments. So end users get the fully formatted, protected workbook, do their data entry, and then save. So in this case, the next step of my demo is moving to the save functionality. So if I process this workbook, instead of hitting retrieve, I'm going to hit save in this case. So I'm going to save this particular sheet, and it's going to process all the changes that were made in this particular workbook and sync up the data on the back end with GP. So all of these items were made and saved and changed automatically in the database. Okay? So instantly, as you can see when I save, the end user is prompted with any error messages, warnings, or messages. In this case, the messages are good. They tell you which cell and what data was updated to the database. So I can close that window. So all the changes are saved, updated directly. If I take and switch over to my demo workbook, where I've got a few more examples of some layouts, where I've got a monthly, and I got multiple budgets, and I got a single budget. If I simply go into these, just for time's sake, just key in some budget data and comments and go to save this data, I'm going to process this workbook, pick the two sheets that I entered data on, and hit save. And again, as fast as I've entered the data and saved, it's pushed that data directly back to Microsoft Dynamics. I did not have to export the file, import it, reconcile. All that data got pushed in there, 12 messages. I will highlight, though, I did get 3 error messages. So again, instantly, the end user, if they're using Full Circle, can see right away, do I have any problems with the data or the workbook? I got a duplicate entry, obviously on purpose, but the accounting fees code 6730 was on here twice. So Full Circle Budget per worksheet will track for duplicate entries on the spreadsheet. So it's going to look for an account number, combination of that account, sub-account, if you're in SL, and track any duplicate entries on the spreadsheet and give you a warning box. It'll save the first line it comes to, skip all the rest. Account doesn't exist, okay? So whether you're in SL, NAV, or GP, you might have account or sub-account, or in GP purposes, you have to have the fully qualified account. So that's the combination of segment 1, segment 2, and segment 3 have to be created in order to save data or enter transactions. So Full Circle Budget will track that. It's telling me right here that this account doesn't exist in Great Plains, okay? We do have a feature on the Great Plains side in my definition setup that we could auto-create the accounts if we wanted to. So I can turn that feature on. So anytime somebody enters budget data to new combinations, it's going to automatically take that and create that account. There are some caveats to that first. So the natural or the main account has to be used in some other fully qualified account, and each of the segments have to be created already in GP. So I can't just start budgeting for a brand new sub-account or brand new account codes unless those sub-accounts and account codes are set up in GP and the main account segment is used in some other fully qualified account. Okay, so those are just 2 quick samples similar to what I did before. Here's a monthly spread. So again, any format you want to come up with in your layout for your budgets can be accommodated here. So in here we're highlighting the fact that my budget ID is up here in H8, and the periods that I want to save this budget data are going across the page. So Full Circle Budget matches up this definition, and when I process this monthly data to Dynamics, it's going to push back all the monthly amounts to the respective periods that you're looking for. So you don't have to do just month only. All that stuff is accomplished through the setup of the definition. So moving on to another very popular feature is, again, multiple budget IDs. So more and more clients are looking to do projections and forecasts, as well as doing next year's budget or even a 3-year budget forecast at the same time. The demands are becoming greater and greater for them to provide budget data further out, okay? The key there is getting that budget data from those Excel workbooks back into your accounting system, because it does you no good to have all that budget data sitting in Excel, because then you have to create these elaborate workbooks to pull off of and report off of. If you can get it back into your accounting system seamlessly without a lot of manual effort, then you can report on it using any of the reporting tools that you're using. So again, real quick, I'm going to save budget data from 4 different budget IDs that fast from this spreadsheet. So I don't have to now export my projections, import them, reconcile them, export budget 2015, import it, reconcile budget 2016, etc. All that budget data was saved directly. Okay? How do I know the budget data was saved directly? Well, I could go pull the budget IDs up in Great Plains to ultimately verify things. I can also check my audit trail log. So if I go to the log viewer feature that's available in Full Circle Budget for the admin users only. So the toolbar you see at the top of my screen, I'm an administrative user, so I see all the options. End users outside of finance would only have the ability to process the budget. So they can only process, they can't do any of these other features. They're not available. So if I go to my log viewer, again, which is the audit trail, this is going to show me all the changes that have been occurring with Full Circle Budget coming from my Excel workbooks. Okay? The audit trail is not going to track budget changes that somebody's making directly in GP. It's only going to track the budget changes that are coming from the Excel workbooks processed through Full Circle Budget. So part of your process will be, I'm always going to use my Excel workbooks and I'm going to process them with Full Circle Budget. Then I know that I've got a full audit trail of every change that's being made. Okay? So by default, the audit trail pulls up the first day, 1 day at a time. So it's got 261 entries in here so far today. So if I wanted to, let's just say I wanted to filter out for only the BUD 2017 items that I saved on the previous Excel spreadsheet, it's going to filter out and only show me BUD 2017. So I can actually see who's saving the budget data, what account codes were updated, what period got updated, and then all the amounts. Okay? I can remove that filter easily. I can take all this budget data here too and export it to Excel. Again, we're in Excel a lot. We like Excel. Let's take that audit trail and dump it directly to Excel. So now I can just filter from here if I want for specific items. Maybe I only want to filter out the 2014 budget changes. Then I can say how many saves did I have? Did I have any error messages? Oh, I do have an error. Let me look at just the error messages so I can see all the information. Oh, by the way, this is an error. Why is there an error? If I scroll over here to the right, I can see that the error is because the account doesn't exist or a duplicate entry, etc. So again, you've got full control with the audit trail to know the changes that are being made and any error messages that are being encountered. Okay, the next nice feature I wanted to highlight with the audit trail is what we call workbook tracking. So I'm not sure if this has come up with you guys in the past, but we've encountered several clients that said, hey, I've got somebody who wants to go back to their budget original entries from 3 months ago. Is there any way to pull that up? And I say, sure, we can do that through workbook tracking. So let's just say I changed my displayed entries going back 3 months, and let's just say the end user back on, I have error messages here. I'm going to find a save, a nice little save. Here's a save. This particular person on 5/9, let's say, and you can filter these windows out by users and whatever. They wanted to come back to this original budget file. There's an open workbook option on the audit trail. So this workbook, open workbook option is actually going to open a snapshot copy of the workbook that was used during budget entry. So here's the original budget entry file that was used for that save back on May 9th. So again, you can easily retrieve historical budget copies, the Excel copies that were used during the budget save anytime during the process. So if an end user is mentioning that their budget data didn't save, or can I get a copy of the original file? I made 50 changes since the original one. I want to see what that one had and go back to it. You can easily go back and retrieve any copy during the process. So again, maybe May 16th or June 16th they had a copy. I want to go look at that one instead. Again, it's just going to open up a copy of the workbook that was used for that particular budget entry at that particular time. So workbook tracking, snapshot copies of every workbook automatically. Okay? So, moving on, I wanted to highlight now and take some time to backtrack a little bit and talk about how easy is it to set up Full Circle Budget, because all I've done so far is show you the end user perspective and a little bit of Audit Trail. So I've formatted workbooks, I've saved budget data, and I've viewed the Audit Trail log to see the changes happening. So from a setup perspective, Full Circle is not that difficult to set up. So I'm going to switch over to this first particular example here, and I'm going to show you that under this particular example, you're going to have a connection. These are the number of connections you can have in the database, an unlimited number. You're going to have one connection per company. So if you've got 5 companies, you're going to have 5 connections. The connection window setup is very basic and simple. Where's my SQL Server? What's the accounting database? And then how am I going to connect to it? Windows authentication or manually supply a number. And then what accounting system, version, etc. am I using? So am I using GP, NAV, T3, tables, SL, T3? So you pick what accounting system you're using, what version you're using, and your setup is done here. So I can test my connection. I've got a green light, and I'm good to go. Outside of setting up a connection per company, I then need to build a definition that matches this layout. Because remember, this layout is different than this layout, which is slightly different than this layout, and it's also different than this layout. So again, the formats are yours. You take Full Circle Budget and match it to your layout and your format. So if I go back to this simple layout, I'm going to work my way forward to more complex items. This one's pretty basic. I've got a budget amount here. I got a column for comments. My segment 1, my segment 2, and segment 3 are on the left-hand side. So if I go to my definition window, you'll see that GP single has been highlighted. So I've set up a definition called GP single 2 that is mapped out to this setup. Okay? What maps Full Circle Budget to this particular layout? It's something called a worksheet pattern. So it's something unique that you put on your budget spreadsheets that'll map up to a spreadsheet. Again, these are very simple. It can be BUD entry 2015 A, B, C, D. It can be using a combination of the data that's already on your spreadsheet. So I could have said, hey, if D3 equals 2015 proposed budget, then give me a definition. So you have to just map something up in this window to get a green light. If it doesn't match, you're going to have a red light. You're not going to be budgeting. So the green light means go. Once you've got that green light, you can then set up the system and say, where's the first row of my budget? What password do I want to put on the spreadsheets? How do I want to format the spreadsheets? Etc. All that stuff is formatted in this particular section here. The page layout, the freeze frame functionality is all captured here. Beyond that, all you're doing is mapping your fields. So these are all the fields that are available with Full Circle Budget to be tracked in the database. Again, not all these fields are in your accounting system database, but they are tracked in Full Circle Budget. Your accounting database is obviously going to have the account number, the budget ID, the year, the period, and the budget amount. So the first 5 items here you map up, those are required. Those have to be mapped in order to save the budget data from Excel back to Dynamics. Okay? Don't be alarmed by or confused by the number of options in these windows. It's pretty basic. So I look at my budget amount, I'm just telling the system, look in column F for my budget amount. I've got a comment on here, so my comment is in column H. So all I'm doing is telling Full Circle Budget where on my Excel spreadsheet is the data. Some cases it's just a column reference. The year could be hard-coded. In this case, the year may not be on the spreadsheet that I want to use. I actually want to save this budget data to 2014, not 2015, based on the budget. The budget ID is in F9. So F9 is budget ID, budget 1 I mean. So when I click in this cell here, you'll notice that it resolves to budget 1. So just real quick, any formulas that can be done in Excel too. So my account code is actually a little bit fancier format. Okay, it's a nice formula that just says if A is blank, so I'm looking down column A, if A is blank, skip it, otherwise add up A5 plus A3 to get my account code. So when I'm on these spreadsheets, as I move up or down the spreadsheet, it changes the account number or it becomes blank and it skips it once it's done. So again, this isn't a training exercise, so I don't expect you to learn all of it, but it's real basic how you can set these up. This one has one section to it. You can have multiple sections to your reports depending on what you want to do. You may want to format a section but mark it read-only. Okay? You may want to do other formatting. You can format per section. So that's just one item. Let me go to another template. Let's go back to this workbook here and take a look at this one. So this layout is using FCB MR budget. Okay? How did I know to map up FCB MR budget? I'm using a formula in here to get my thing. And I'm using an AND feature or formula in Excel that says if A1 equals XXX Bud 2017 and the length of A6 equals 3, then I got a green light. Well, if I look up here, A1, there's my XXX Bud 2017X, but you don't see it because we put that in Management Reporter and marked it with white font. So you can put in parameters in Excel and use white font so when they show up on the reports you don't see the data, but there's actually data there. Likewise, A6 is my segment 3. A6 has got my last segment in it. It's hard-coded in there from Management Reporter. So again, I mark this up. If I look at my fields here, I've got two sections to this report. My section F is for my projection, and my section G is for my budget. So I can apply different formatting per section. So section A is this color, section B is this color. If I wanted to change the color real quick, I can simply change the color. Let's go with bisque and gray, and then let's make this one, let's keep the black font, but then let's change let's go deep sky blue. So I'm going to make a quick change to the format of this spreadsheet. To change the spreadsheet itself, what am I going to do? I'm simply just going to process. So I can do all the sheets, hit retrieve. It's going to reformat them based on the color schema I've already deployed. That color schema change is actually a very powerful feature if you use it in your budget process. We've had several clients use the color schema during their process, so they'll deploy one color for the initial rollout of their budget, and then when they have 2 weeks left or 3 weeks left in their budget cycle, they'll change the format automatically, and then when they've only got a week left of their budget, they're in last minute mode, they change the color schema again, so that way the end user knows without even having to communicate too much what color they are in their budget. So if it's going to be green, yellow, red, you can color code your cells and change them automatically by making one change in your format here. Okay? So again, very powerful functionality in the definition, format spreadsheets, highlight data, etc. Formulas can also be put in here. So let's see, I don't think this one, actually this one does have a formula. So this particular spreadsheet has a variance column in it. Okay, the variance column was looking at C and D, which is my actual data, but again, it's a formula. So you can put a formula in these definitions, and it'll automatically put a formula in the spreadsheet. So you can see my spreadsheet has C minus D. So all that functionality readily available, helping you format and update the data. A couple other items I want to highlight here before we ask for some questions and open things up a little. So we've got connections, we've got definitions. For the most part, that's all you need to do budgeting, okay? Some of the other features that are available, instead of processing one workbook at a time and saving, if you wanted to use the batch mode process, so you're going to deploy workbooks to your end users, they're going to enter budget data, save it, send it back to you. You want to process in batch mode instead of one at a time, because you might have 20 workbooks, 50 workbooks, 150 workbooks. So you can go to the process batch window, select the folder on the network where the files exist, and then it'll automatically check off the files based on some date parameter you want it to do. So if you know you're processing budget data and you've processed everything through March 25, 2015, okay, then you can simply select the next date of the files, and it's only going to highlight the files that are dated after that. So you can automatically know which files to process just based on a date without even having to say process all of them. Okay, and again, processing in batch mode is as easy as clicking those items and then hitting retrieve or save. Again, save will process the budget data back to Dynamics Retrieve will format the workbook. So you can use the process batch on the front end and back end of your budget cycle. Locking budgets. People always say, well, how do I stop people from budgeting or lock the budget out, etc.? Well, there's two options to lock out budgets with Full Circle. You can simply come into the definition, FCB MR budget, and I can deactivate it and hit save. Now I've got no budget set up for this particular setup. I can't process. It says there's nothing here to process because there's no definition that matches this. That's one way. That's the easiest, simplest way to just lock all budgeting out, is to just do that. The second option is to lock the budget because maybe you in accounting want to make changes, but you don't want your end users to make any changes, especially accidental ones, once you've started reconciling. So you can lock the budgets with a password by going to the Lock Budgets area, pick the definition you want, put a password on it. Anytime you went to save, you'd have to put the password in. So the Lock Budgets feature allows you to put a password protection on the budget. The inactivate definition totally drops budgeting from any kind of connectivity. The budget maintenance option in here is actually a pretty neat little feature. Let's go back to this workbook here. I'm going to go to my GP multiple because I've got 4 different budget IDs here. This is an easy one to look at this in. So if I go to my budget maintenance option here, if I go to connections, I'm going to be using sample company GP2. The budget maintenance works off of your connections. So you're going to have 1 connection per company. So this is the company that I'm going to be working with that I saved this budget data to, so I pick that company. The next thing I do now is filter out for account codes that I want to search for. If I wanted to search for all accounts with 000 in it, I could type 000 dash and start finding all the account codes. Okay, it's going to do it in groups of 10, so I can search for any account code I want to do. In this case, I know I want 000 dash 61, let's do 6730, which is my accounting fees. 00, that's the account I want to look up. When I click that account, I'm brought to this window here, which is going to show me all of the budget IDs that are set up in Great Plains. So I can look at all the budget IDs at one time right in here by this window. So I'm going to be looking for the Proj 2014 budget. So I'm going to find Proj 2014, which is associated with the year 2014. Here's the budget amount, 1782. Comments for 6730. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong accounts right down here, 178 comments. Okay, if I wanted to switch to the next budget ID that's in this workbook, which is Bud 2015, I can just go to Bud 2015. And there's the next budget amount, 180. So all this data that's from these workbooks is saved directly back to GP. I can retrieve it in budget maintenance and look it up right from here in one screen without having to log into GP. I can also change these budget amounts. If I wanted to change this to 190,000, I can change it. I can even add comments in here if I want. But there's no comments set up in this definition here for these columns, so it doesn't do me any good because I can't retrieve it. So I'm going to change that budget amount and hit save. I'm going to come back to my Proj 2014, and instead of saying comments for account 6730, budget comments from maintenance. So I'm actually going to change the comment right from this window and save. Now to get that new comment in my spreadsheet, I do a retrieve. So I'm going to process and retrieve this spreadsheet, and you should see, did I make the right change? Let's see, CP multiple. Well, first thing I'm going to do there, the comment didn't refresh, so maybe I didn't save it correctly, but let me go to my audit trail to see if I have any changes here. So there's the item. When I export this to Excel, this first item here actually says budget comments for maintenance, Proj 2014. So it actually made the changes in the database for those particular items. So now I'm going to say, okay, well, why didn't it refresh? Let me just double check to make sure I actually am pointed to the correct setting here. Sample company GP2. My process. Let's try and retrieve again. I'm dumbfounded. So I'm going to double check and see why that's not coming through, because I'm pretty sure that I made the change to the correct connection in the settings. But anyways, those comments would retrieve normally. Connections, definitions, log viewer, lock. I'm trying to think if there's any other features or items that I wanted to highlight. Oh, detailed line item budgeting. So beyond the basic functionality of entering budgets at your account, sub-account levels, we also offer that feature for detailed line item budgeting. So within my account code, I can have line items underneath each account code and do budget transactions. So for instance, maybe I wanted to allow my staff to enter comments, 2 different comment fields. You can have 4 comment fields per budget amount and allow them to do their budget entry. Now, before I save, we'll highlight the line items themselves are not being stored in your Dynamics database, because your Dynamics database doesn't track line items. It only tracks the account balance. So when I process this save, the line items are being stored in the Full Circle Budget T3 tables, not the accounting code database. So if I go to my Audit Trail, you'll see that these first 9 or 10 lines here actually having a line item number appended to them. So the account code plus the line item number is what's tracked in the database. So again, exporting to Excel, I can see all this data. Account code, detail line from the worksheet, and then the line item number that goes with it. So this data, since it's stored in the database, in SQL, any SQL reporting could work off of it. If you have an Excel-based budgeting or reporting tool like BI360, which was highlighted before, Jet Reports ultimately could do it, SQL reporting could do it, pivot tables could read these data sets. You could actually store data in detail and easily retrieve it with any of those reporting tools and options. All right. I think I've covered the bulk of the functionality and features that I would like to highlight here. I think we should open up the lines and see what kind of comments we have here and questions, and we'll see if we can answer those.
All right, excellent. So we do have several questions that have come in, and I would invite anyone else in the audience to get their questions into that Q&A block now so that we have them in the queue for Matthew. So first, is per month entry possible?
Yes, and I think that question, I think I saw that question come in before I actually got to the monthly template. So this is like a per month entry. All these budget amounts are going back to Dynamics in the respective month, similar to how this particular layout was doing it with the monthly forecast too. So when we save with this forecast, it's going to put into the forecast budget ID this amount in period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4, and likewise all this budget data is going into the accumulation of my forecast by month. So again, all that budget data is stored by month.
What about links to other workbooks and the sheets in them?
You can add links to those workbooks. The links themselves aren't stored, so if, let's just say, go to this example, because sometimes this is where people say, well, what if I just had my detail lines on a separate workbook and link those to the front sheet? Am I going to be storing the detail lines, or what's going to get saved? Well, let's assume we're taking this as my summary sheet, and these are all links to different sheets or to different workbooks. The links themselves will not get stored or saved, but the data that resides in the cell that's coming from the link will get saved. And the links will not get broken unless you rerun those reports. So once you've deployed your budget workbooks out to the network and you've created the links to those workbooks, then those will remain intact as long as you don't move files around or regenerate reports. So hopefully that answers that.
All right. Is it possible to budget quantities like for example, FTE?
Yes, it is. One of the items that we would track in our definition we have in here is unit quantity, unit amount. So if you did have a budget template that had unit quantities, unit amounts. You could use these fields to store that type of stuff. FTEs are also another item where you might store it directly in your accounting system under unit accounts. So you could store that budget to unit accounts, and that can be done with Full Circle. So as long as the account code is valid and the budget ID is valid, you can store FTEs to those that budget ID under those unit accounts.
Is there a rolling forecasting option?
Yeah, I guess the best way to highlight the rolling forecast is similar to this. So this particular report is a report that is generated from Management Reporter, and if I look at the column layout of this report, this is what we call a rolling forecast template. So basically the end user is going to run the report for whatever period they want, and in the column layout we actually have 2 columns per month. One is actual, one is budget data that's going to come out, and the system Management Reporter controls the output depending on what base period you run this report for. So for example, this report here was run through June when I ran it. If I wanted to rerun this report and I needed to make it July now, I just generate that report with July. I'm only going to pick one report just to make it go through real quick. Now this is going to run with year-to-date. Actuals are going to be through July. The budget data is going to be for the last 5 months. So again, run your reports for the period you need. The forecasts themselves will adjust automatically based on the setup, or you can manually change the budget ID that you want to go to for each budget forecast. So forecast 1 could go to a budget ID different than forecast 2 or 3 or 4, or they can just go to themselves. So here's that report. So here's my year-to-date through July, and you don't have to generate these with year-to-date numbers with each month. You can have the year-to-date number be one column and then just show the remaining months, or even a total column. So we've got clients that'll generate these forecast reports with just a year-to-date number and then a remaining budget column or forecast number and then a total. And they can make changes in those remaining budget columns to update the forecast. We'll store the actual data plus the forecast data to a respective period, so that way we know where the data is coming from. When I ran this for June, I knew I had June actuals plus July through December budget. If I run it for July, I've got July actuals plus 5 months of budget. So you got control over what you need, again, based on whatever report format you can come up with. Okay?
Okay, a couple of currency questions. Does Full Circle work with different currencies?
Yes, it does. So again, whatever the currency is that's in the spreadsheet, and the base currency that's in the database, that's what it's going to store it as. So I have to have the base currency in Excel to store directly to GP or SL. So I can't have euros here and try and convert that and store it as dollars in the database. So the spreadsheet has to save in the base currency of the accounting system. So you would have maybe a conversion factor on your spreadsheet if you're budgeting in dollars and want to convert it to euros. As long as your accounting system database is euros, then you'll want to store the data in euros. Convert it, store it in euros.
And then is FX consolidation possible? And then what about intercompany eliminations and default currency consolidation?
FX, I assume FX consolidation possible, intercompany.
I don't know
Depends on how the consolidation is doing. So maybe it's reporting consolidation. So the reporting consolidation can happen. The budget data itself, you're going to want to store to the individual companies. So whatever you're using for your reporting tool, if it's running a consolidated report from Management Reporter, it's going to pull from the individual company databases, or if it's a BI 360 report that's consolidated, it's going to run from the data mart or whatever. The budget data that Full Circle Budget stores still goes back to the individual company database. That's the preferred option, because then the roll-ups to the consolidation database happen automatically rather than storing at the consolidation level. But it can be done depending on the settings. I see one question here, is it possible to have multiple forecasts per year? Yeah, the forecast, you can have as many forecasts as you want per year. You can use the same forecast ID and just store new budget data as you want, or you can actually create a new forecast per month, per quarter. Simply, the easiest option is once you've got your definition in here, instead of having the budget ID, instead of having the budget ID be something on my spreadsheet, you could just call this forecast 1, and then when you want to change to forecast 2, just hard code this to forecast 2. When staff start entering and saving the next forecast, it goes to forecast 2. Likewise, forecast 3, forecast 4, etc. Without you having to rerun reports and create new budget IDs. You have to create the budget IDs in the accounting system, but you can easily make one change in the definition, so all budget spreadsheets will then go to the new forecast ID.
Can you report in both base currency and local currency?
You can, but we're not doing any reporting. So the reporting, again, is generated by whatever report writer you're using. So if you're going to use Management Reporter, if you're going to use BI 360 or Jet Reports, or any reporting solution that's out there that you want to use, that's the reporting solution that's going to get you the data in base currency, reporting currency, etc. Full Circle Budget is only the budgeting tool. We can format the reports, we can save the budget data, but we don't actually do the reporting. Hopefully that answers the question.
All right, I want to make a last call for questions here. We're just about at the end of the list. When you upload a new forecast, do you need to upload the variance or the total new forecast?
It's up to you. Really, the end users or each organization is different. Do they want to compare to from one forecast to another? Like in this particular case, some clients would take, okay, I'm doing my forecast through June. I only want to store the annual forecast, the total forecast, store that in period 6. And when I go to run this for July, store the new forecast in period 7. That way you can do period-to-period variance reporting by just comparing my forecast from period 6 to forecast to period 7. Or again, you could store the forecasts in different budget IDs themselves, so you can always easily compare forecast 1 to forecast 2 to forecast 3, etc. You have full control over that.
Okay, and a couple of folks are just asking if Full Circle is compatible with Dynamics AX.
It is currently not, and I don't know that we've necessarily got it on a development cycle. It was brought up a couple years ago about looking at it, but I don't know that because of the niche market that I think it fits into, more smaller organizations looking to, with limited budgets, looking to minimize deployment options. I think AX is a solution that, probably would have a more robust solution needed for those types of organizations. But so currently, no.
Okay, well, that is the last question. Thanks so much, Matt, for taking the time to answer all of those for us.
No problem.
And thanks to everyone in the audience too for submitting so many questions and for your attention today. Please do look for a survey on the way out. It should just pop up as you close out. We really appreciate any feedback you can provide. It should just take 15 or 20 seconds. We did record today's event. We'll be making that available soon as well. So thanks again for attending, and that concludes today's event. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.